What's up, internet? Welcome back to some more Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and today we're actually going to be looking at a common blade. Well, not completely just common blades, but rather a certain skill that the common blade has that really does make them a worthy addition to any team, provided they have this ability. I'm introducing to you guys the Orb Master. This is a really cool skill. Essentially what this does is that whenever you initiate or follow up a blade combo, with any character in the game, you will actually have a 100% probability to create an orb just by participating. So what this means, essentially, is that this particular blade right now, she's a Great Axe, which is really useful. She actually can initiate and create a dark element with just the first stage of the combo. And then you can follow that up with a light element to create the sort of Ray of Light ability, and that will be a light orb for us. And then finally, to cap things off, it's going to be lightning or electric, which will be the electric orb. That's 3 orbs in 3 steps. And honestly, depending on how you formulate your team, you can actually realistically get all 8 orbs in less than 3 minutes. It's really fast and really awesome. So if you guys are currently searching for the last couple of rare blades, make sure you check for the blade skills to make sure that Orb Master isn't one of the things they throw away. It's such a useful skill, and in my opinion, it's worth taking out any of your rare blades of that same element just so you can accommodate this one. It's just very useful currently as of right now. So also, I just wanted to mention that I actually have 2 other blades with Orb Master, and now unfortunately, due to the nature of the randomness of these skills, they did not get the full level 5 ability. So this time it's going to be a 90% probability for this fire elemental. Also, I do have an earth elemental on Nia right now, so that is going to be a 90% probability for an earth orb and any orb that follows it up. So that is essentially what our battle plan is going to be. One other thing I wanted to mention too is that the blade in question, I don't really care much about the damage of this. The thing is, you're kind of just making them fill sort of a placeholder in terms of building the orbs. The main damage is going to be your rare blades. Particularly one rare blade might be more than enough to justify, considering that all the damage boost that you get from breaking orbs will be added to their attack values, so they might end up so what I'm saying is that we're going to be using a certain blade that's going to be doing most of the dirty work for us, but just in case, I've decided to give a Moon Mattership to this axe just to get more of a critical rate so that I can build up attacks and affinity that much quicker. Another thing I wanted to mention is that just try to make it a point to have every single element on your team. It really does help speed up the process, and it is the requirement anyway if you want to actually build up all 8 orbs for your battles. So of course we have Zeke with the electric, ice, and wind. Nia, I've given her a light even though we already have a light element, but it does help just to have one more just in case the water orb doesn't work. Then of course we have water and earth. Rex has fire and light built into Pyra Mithra, and then we also have the fire element with us too, and then finally a dark element. Ideally, you would be trying to build up orbs without needing to stack up on 2 elements, and thanks to this setup that we have, we'll only need to do that for water, which will be light water. It's a little bit tricky to explain, so hopefully in the demonstration it'll be more apparent. One other thing I wanted to mention too is that for the most part, our items are pretty basic. Just focus on keeping yourself as durable as possible. Thankfully, the common blade that I have has a 24% HP modifier. Feel free to mess around with what you have. A burst symbol would be nice, especially considering that you have 3 slots to work with, so just dedicating one of them to a burst symbol will definitely help your damage output for the chain attack. And finally, I just want to mention that the pouch setup is the same for Nia and Zeke. I want to make sure that their arts can recharge as quickly as possible. So that's exactly what we see here. Snow Dumplings, Char-Grilled Grumbird. You can get the second one from Fonsamima and the Snow Dumplings from Tantal. So let's go ahead and get ourselves started. We're actually going to be fighting against an Artifice Ophion. Usually Artifice Ophion is a very tricky boss. I've mentioned many times before, he has a very unpredictable damage output. Thankfully though, due to the fact that the best way, or the most common way to beat him is to actually just go ahead and then build up all the orbs as possible. It's a very painstaking kind of process to go through, quite lengthy. I believe my very first fight against this guy took closer to about half an hour. It took quite a while, but thanks to Orb Master, it's going to be a lot easier to go ahead and do this. And more often than not, it's going to take longer for him to actually get to us before we can actually get things started. The other thing I wanted to mention about Orb Master is that if you are already fairly well developed in terms of how powerful your characters have become, we all know how OP people can become. One nice thing about this too is the fact that if you are the kind of person to focus on single orb setups, Orb Master just makes you do that much faster. It's really good. And you know what? I think in today's video I will show you an example of using a single orb setup using the Orb Master. The common blades can be quite useful, and honestly Orb Master is exactly what does this for us. One of the other cool things too is that if you have an Omega Drive, and also with the upgrades to the new affinity charts, it's actually going to be quite easy to build a party gauge. We won't even need the Omega Drive for the most part anyway. Okay, I'm going to wait for Zeke to do the Heaven's Bolts. As you can see, there are currently 2 orbs. No, there are 2 orbs. There is a light and a dark. Thankfully, Artifice Ophion is a little bit easier to keep track of in terms of, you know, finding out what orbs you do and don't have. But as of right now, we have already gotten 3 orbs within the first minute of the battle. It'll be really, really nice stuff. So here we go. Now, the next step I want to do is just probably initiate a fire element. Before I do so, I want to give my teammates some time, so I'm going to just waste a little bit of time sort of just building my way to a level 3 combo, and then I'm going to switch over to the fire element common blade with the Orb Master, so here we go. Okay, so I have the fire element, and as luck would have it, that 90% chance worked for us, so now we're going to start crossing our fingers for the water element to follow up that fire element that we already got, and let's find out. Okay, so unfortunately the 90% chance did not work for Dromark. That's okay. Building the water orb is actually not any trouble whatsoever. The best way I found doing it is that since we have 2 light elements on our team, which is Cosmos and Mithra, we can just build 2 stages of that, and then when I transform into Numa, I create the Ruinous Weather, so that's not really a problem for me. And just like before, I'm kind of just going to stall for time a little bit. I want to make sure that every single time I'm doing this, I want to give time for my teammates to actually build something. So here we go. Next thing on my list would have to be, I'd like very much for Nia to switch over, but considering that she's on, what's it called, she's on Cosmos right now, she's trying to make use of that the light weakness. So how about we go... Okay, do you know what we can do? We're going to have to try for this, because I know the AI probably won't cooperate. So I'm going to instead go for 2 levels of darkness, and then Nia should follow up with an earth element, and that should be okay. Oh, here comes the barrier field. Ugh, I always forget about this one. I wish they would make it a little bit more obvious that this is a thing that's happening. So here we go. Come on, Zeke. Okay, we won't have enough time, I believe, to make... No, I think we could. Look, the barrier field's already done. We have 2 dedicated healers on our team, assuming that Nia switches out of Cosmos in time for something like that to happen. So here we go. Also, I want to make sure my affinity's a little bit higher, just so that I can make sure that I'll have the special recharges in time. So here we go. And... gravity. Okay, so now that we have this ready, I'm actually going to go for the second level. It shouldn't be that difficult. Again, we are with a crit recharge mechanic, so it could be very easy to build this up. And then that should cue in Nia to actually follow it up with an earth element. So here we go. Hopefully the AI does follow through. One of the tricky things about Artifice Ophion is that if you do have a light element on your team, your partner will just go ahead and think that they can just stay around and then make use of that. So here we go. Here's our earth element. The only elements that we are missing right now are water and wind. I think because of that element, though, the element weakness that the AI is trying to exploit, Tyrannotite and Crudel actually would be a much easier boss to do this kind of strategy on, just because they're a little bit more cooperative. Okay, we are missing wind and water. That's okay. What's it called? So, yeah, we have to go earth first. Earth first from Nia, and then I'm going to follow that up with fire. And Zeke is already using Boreas right now, so this can be perfect for us. Here we go. And give us that Volcanic Storm. And then this is going to be our Wind Orb. So after we do this, I'm going to quickly switch over to Mithra, and then, being Mithra, I am going to start spamming away, and then we'll be able to build the first 2 stages of our abilities. We do need to be Mithra in order to transform into Numa anyway, so here we go. So start things off with level 1, and honestly, like, I'm pretty sure Nia's going to go ahead and switch anyways, so there we go. And then switch into Numa, and then wait for the A button to appear on the Ruinous Weather, unless Zeke decides to just do that. Here we go. So hopefully this should also build up the party gauge for me. Again, with all the updates with the party gauge system in this game, it's actually not that difficult to build up and max it out, even if you had to revive someone. So here we go. Okay, right on the dot. Now, we have everything pretty much all set. As you can see, all 8 orbs are now here. One of the really interesting things about this game is that it's actually quite difficult to really understand how exactly these work. So for the benefit of newer players that are watching right now, essentially all you have to do is just break each of the orbs. Ideally, you would be able to break all of them. If you were using the opposite elements, it takes about 3 hits, but if you're using the opposite element, it's going to be counting as 2 hits, meaning that you just have to hit it once and then someone else can follow it up, and that counts as a break. Whenever you break it, you go ahead and get yourself the round extend, and ideally, after you break 4 or 5 orbs, if you break 4 orbs all in 1 round, or in the span of 2 rounds, then you're going to be able to get the full burst. If not, then the 5 over about the span of 3 should be enough to get yourself the full burst too. So here we go. The nice thing about using Numa is that she'll automatically hit all of them, so if anyone on your team has the opposite element, it's going to home in on that one. So you can see that Cosmos is the opposite of darkness, so we can go ahead and then break that dark orb. So here we go. And also, because of the order that we're going in, the third player, or the third party member, is going to be the person that is guaranteed going to do the full burst ability. It doesn't really matter which one you pick anyway, because every single character is going to be getting a damage boost. It's just that the person that you end off on is the person that's actually going to be doing the attack. So let's just have things with Ursula right now. And that's going to be opposite, so the opposite of ice is wind, the opposite of electricity is earth, and the opposite of dark is light, and then finally there's fire and water. So again, because we have Numa, we can hit all of them, and you're only allowed to use that one anyway if you're playing as Rex. And let's follow things off. Let's go for another Cosmos. We actually don't have to worry about opposite elements anymore because everyone got hit at least twice. And Pandoria. Pandora's going to finish things off, and we'll get a really cool animation. Hopefully the camera angle of being on this slope won't give us any awkward angles up someone's skirt or against someone's bulge. Not naming names here. Here we go. So as you can see, the damage percentage on the left side is at 7,163%. Here we go. Yeah, and meanwhile, while this animation is going on, everyone's still attacking with that huge damage boost. So here we go. I'd actually recommend using this kind of strategy against characters like Kuradil or Cloud Seeking Ken, just due to the fact that the bonuses that you get, so that bonus percentage, actually affects how much money you get from this, and I believe it also affects the drop rate. So yeah, that's the really fun thing about using this one. I'm actually going to skip ahead to the video to show you guys what it looks like if you just use this in a single orb setup, so please look forward to that. Alrighty, so here we are back again with only a few minor adjustments. Instead of having a bunch of blades on everyone, I've decided to give everyone just the one. So I have the dark type common blade on Rex, and this is basically just going to be me quickly building up that first orb with Orb Master, and then we're going to follow it up with Zeke and Herald, and then Poppy Tora. Obviously, Poppy is a light element as a result of farming Tora, or Tiger rather, meaning that we are going to be seeing a massive damage boost very early on. Because Poppy is the second person on our team, she's going to actually give Herald the bonus when it's Herald's time to shine in the chain attack, meaning that Herald is going to be doing much more damage than she usually does, and that's really saying something. So here we go. Honestly, this fight is probably going to take a lot less time than waiting for Artifice Ophion to actually get to us. The cool thing about this particular blade is that the level 3 special, I'm talking about the common blade by the way, the level 3 special hits a bunch of times, so like I might have mentioned earlier, the Omega Drive actually gives you more party gauge based on how many times you crit, and it hits many times, and if you get the Excellent, then the affinity chart of Rex will actually give you even more. Honestly, that's all it really should take, and because we're using a crit recharge, building that orb is no problem whatsoever. For safety's sake, I've also given him an Avant-Garde medal just in case. Remember, I am using a Moon Matter, so if you want to maximize your potential, you should also have that. I've also given him, for the Aux Cores, the critical up, and also Hunter's Chemistry, just to make sure that the affinity can max itself as soon as possible. So here we go, already building to level 3. As soon as this goes, we should have enough meter to fill things out. And we got ourselves a Dark Orb, so just making sure that everyone's at the yellow line. And here we go. So this is really where the magic starts to happen. Potentially what I also could have done, I actually could have bonded Patroka with Rex, because if I switch over to Patroka, then we would actually give, what's her name, Poppy, the extra damage from the sort of exploiting the elemental passive. So here we go. Obviously this won't be any much damage, but because we have S+ blades on our team already, we don't really need to worry about that too much. There we go, plenty of damage, 600,000 every single hit, and now we have the 1165% going over to the Herald, so you're going to see some even more damage, assuming each of them crit. There we go. more than halfway, or almost more than halfway. And then make sure that you get this one to make sure that you can even continue. There were many times where I've made mistakes and I completely missed that, like, the world's easiest QTE. And then we ended up having to redo some of the fights. Or the fights ended up taking a lot longer than they were supposed to. And finally, the Coup De Gras. Check this out. All that cap damage from a single orb setup, and that didn't even last that long either. This is a really fun build to work with, and honestly, when challenge mode comes out, I can be sure that most of us with similar setups would have very little to worry about, unless of course there is something about challenge mode where they willingly restrict the blades that we're able to have access to. But if we even have something close to Orb Master, then I really can't wait to see what happens. So guys, thanks very much for joining me for today's brief video, and as usual, I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone.